So I watched the whole of this podcast. This is Triggernometry. It's Constantine and Francis. I've been watching them since about 2021, I suspect. And I watched the whole of their interaction with Tommy Robinson, Stephen Lashley. And this isn't about that. They go through everything and they outline everything and they ask, he's allowed to speak freely. I don't think they push back, but they probe for further questions. I think it's really good interaction. I think they're being as honest as they can. And I think they're going to get some real pushback for this. I don't know what level that's going to be. But then they get to the latter stages as, okay, so let's say they've agreed with lots of points. And the next question is, what do we do about it? And I want to watch this again because it's a big question. What do we do about this? Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah. Now, that doesn't excuse that there's been problems, because there's a level of aggression and anger in this country which has been simmered and underneath and boiling for decades. And at times it's come up. So how do you do that? You need to harness it and channel it. When the riots went on in Southport, I made it very clear. I made videos, and the reason why I made videos is because I was worried for those young men. Yeah, because I understand their anger. Because 20 years ago, I put on a balaclava. Yeah, I run through the streets of Luton. So I get what you're doing, but there's a better way than that. Yeah, and Which is, so I remember making a video saying, where are the men? Get those kids' masks off their faces, because they're all kids. When I was watching the trouble going on, they're just young kids. They're going to ruin their whole lives. They're going to get put in jail, and they're angry. I believe they.
Where are the men struggling with third generation economic stagnation? Third generation, 28% unemployment. It's not an excuse. There's just a lot underlies in this country of its own issues, of its own population, not its migrant population, illegal or otherwise. There's just, it's been going on. I mean, I remember growing in 78, 79, 79, 80, when I was coming towards that stage in my life where I had to make decisions. You had youth opportunity schemes and apprenticeships. Well, all those shipyards are shut down. All the coal mines are shut. All the things that kept my town going are gone. Yep. And that's not just unique to where I'm from. It's everywhere. So that the big question is, it's not what do we do about this, is how do we understand our past? How do we understand how the community feels like it is? And I think they'll touch on it, if I remember rightly. So you have a nation of, for want of a better word, disenfranchised men and women of all denominations, all gender, both genders, all races, that are absolutely been here for, say, 70, 80 years if they're immigration and a migrant population. And they're also feeling the pinch. And Tommy talks about when the EDL was formed, it had a Hindu branch, a Sikh branch, it had a gay branch. So he's outlining that the problems faced by the country are being exasperated by this current set of problems. But what do we do about it?
They are justifiably angry. Yeah, that's what I believe. That level of anger, if we look at where the protests were, Hull, is it Hull or Hartlepool? Hartlepool or Hull, one of them. A Muslim man in the hotel left the hotel and stabbed a pensioner to death for Gaza. Yeah, don't even know if people know about this, yeah? In a terrorist attack. He was in the hotel. There was trouble outside that hotel during the riots. Of course there was. There was trouble outside the hotel in Tamworth during the riots because Mohammed left the hotel and raped an English woman who was walking home. Of course there was. There's been 8 Muslim migrants in hotels who have women. There's been 25 sexually assaults against kids from migrants in hotels. This week there's been a 12-year-old two men, Afghanis. There's been the attack in...
He showed earlier when Tommy Robinson was interviewed by Paxman quite a while back, and Paxman's counter-argument was the easy, low-hanging fruit. Well, don't British gangs do this? Don't white British men do this? Yes, they do. But not statistically as published by the government stats themselves, not at the same rate, not at the same frequency. So he's just outlining a problem that people are going to latch onto and say, that's why we don't like him, because he's being racist. No, he's pointing out a statistical anomaly in a crime stat that is shared with its correlation is it's potentially, or it seems obvious, that there's a migrant population, illegal or otherwise, that is committing these crimes at a high rate for lots of underlying reasons. They're all covering this, but it's still not getting to what are we going to do about it.
Warwickshire, there's been the sexual assault in Epping, and I challenge anyone to do this.
Some of those cases, we have to say for your
Allegedly.
benefit, allegedly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like you to go to prison for something you said on here. Just for people who.
To be fair, people have been saying allegedly when they want to quote, when they want to say something that's a bit outrageous for years. It's not new. It's not new to this set of problems that we've got in the media. People have been saying allegedly in front of statements, and it's not actually always a get out of jail card.
Who don't understand British libel law, you have to
Saying allegedly doesn't mean you're not defaming somebody.
say that until someone's
Until
been
they've
found
been proven guilty, yeah.
Right.
But there's been do you know, Afghan, they put Libyan forces in a military base. They raped 2 men. Yeah. Now, all this is going on, right? We know it's going on. Everyone who lives in these towns and cities knows it's going on. The difference is this used to be confined to Luton.
Right.
And towns like Luton. Yeah. Not anymore. It's in your village.
So just
I'm glad he added towns like Luton, because whilst Luton had, and Tommy's outlined them, sort of the designation of a hub of a specific set of problems, it was happening all over the northwest. It was happening at all. This has been springing up for years.
there's a lot of the stuff you've just mentioned there that we've talked about ad nauseum on the show.
Okay.
A lot, right? As you know,
And that's why I really respect the pair of them. I know Francis doesn't get the flowers he deserves, but Constantine's a very, very academically able person. His Oxford speech is something to behold. And I've seen him, he come to notoriety, because he's a former comedian, he doesn't do stand-up anymore, although he is funny, yeah? He's in this, he's all in. But they cover lots of other issues and topics on, I mean, there's a great one there with Kelly J. Keane on trigonometry, which is great, got a lot of backlash for that. So they're not frightened to go at the issue. I think this one is going to really, I mean, I think we're at over 1 million views, close to 1.3 million views in, 2 days? It's going to go on and on and on. But still, they're trying to broach the subject from Tommy's perspective. What do we do about it, though? What do we do about this problem that he's saying that everybody's talking about? What do we do about it? Sorry, guys. Pull this back up.
I'm first generation immigrant myself. I think illegal immigration is completely unacceptable and just shouldn't be happening. There shouldn't be boats coming over the channel. They should be turned around and taken back to France. Like, none of this should be happening. We shouldn't be putting people up in hotels at the taxpayers' expense. We should be, if you want to.
The podcast of the Lotus Eaters actually did something great, and I'll link it. I'll find it and link it, where they actually talk about the boats. Whilst they're a problem, they're not the full problem. There are other issues going on around the whole gamut of immigration and the problems it attracts further down the line. And the podcast of the Lotus Eaters did a great section on it, yeah. And they seem to have all the resources and they seem to source all the stats. So I have no reason to disbelieve it. Go and look them up, guys. But I'll find it and I'll put it in.
Have asylum, you process them outside of the country.
They could stop that like that.
Of course they could. And I think it's a balls problem. It's not, we don't know how to do it. We don't have the balls to do it, right?
Yeah. But they will have the balls when they see the public opinion.
Exactly. But what I'm asking you is, for example, you mentioned 23% of
Public opinion or public action? I think that's what everyone's trying to avoid.
Muslims in this country watch Sharia law, and you said they need to go, right? So what are you saying? If someone believes in Sharia law, we have to deport them?
If someone wants to overthrow the democracy of this nation and replace it with a violent ideology, we need to deal with it. And most of these people, say for example, there's 40,000.
It's illegal. You just make it illegal. You make any outcomes null and void. The community themselves have got to deal with it themselves. If they're trying to embrace Sharia law, and because there are other religions that have laws and councils within the country that give advice and make decisions, but Sharia law is what's been talked about here. If it's illegal, it's illegal. Find them, stop them, break them.
40,000 British Muslims or Muslims on a terrorist watch list.
Right.
40,000.
Or make it not against the law.
Yeah.
Out of that 40,000, I think 50% of them hold dual nationality. And they've got to go. Why are we following them?
I agree. Yeah.
There's 3,000 of that 40,000 who are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at a cost of £9 billion a year. Now, as the demographic changes, as the demographic changes in this country, we could deal with this.
If I wanted to be inflammatory, I'd say, so we're going to save £2 billion on cutting back on pensioners to pay for the £9 billion to guard against terrorists, suspected terrorists, alleged terrorists. It doesn't matter. People are still on watch lists, and it's costing a fortune.
These problems when it was 1 or 2% Muslim population. Yeah? If we get forward to where we're at now, 6-7%, and we look at the projected growth forecast of the Islamic community, when we get to 25%, for example, well, that 40,000 is going to double or treble. That's an army. Yeah? That's a problem. How do we afford it? Say Pakistani Muslims make up 3% of the British population. They're responsible for 33% of child defects. Do you know how much that costs?
Due to cousin marriage.
Due to cousin marriage. 76% of Muslims in Bradford, Pakistani Muslims, marry their cousin. How much is that costing? Why are we tolerating this nonsense? Because Muhammad married his cousin. Well, I don't care what Muhammad done 1,400 years ago. You're in Britain. Sort it out. We're not paying for it anymore. Yeah? Well, our country's struggling. Our people are struggling. Our own people on the streets. They're homeless. They're hungry. They can't heat their homes. And whilst this is all going on, you're spending how much on...
And that's the quickest way to radicalise anybody, is keep compounding their own problems by catering to or seemingly catering to a community that is creating more problems at more cost and more expense socially, economically. You want to radicalise people? Carry on doing this. You could argue that. And it's not that I refuse to be enraged. It serves no purpose. I don't have to display anger to display an understanding of the situation. I don't have to rage against the machine to say I don't agree with it. It serves no purpose to me to be angry. I want to critically evaluate what people are talking about in order to come to my own conclusion, both objectively to counteract my subjective emotional feelings. I need to be objective.
The hotels of who? Men who are culturally impossible to integrate or assimilate into this country. And that's just, and that's not being, and do you know what's mad here? Which I think needs to come out is Abu Halima. Do you know Abu Halima? Sorry, Abu, I'm going to talk about you.
Would we care about the cultural integration if in fact there was economic input and the communities were law abiding, but they just wanted to live separately? I'm not sure.